What advice do you have for someone that's getting started in business or as an entrepreneur?
I guess, what everybody says, you hear it everywhere, but just never give up.
Good morning. Excited to have Scott Sharp on this morning.
Thank you, man. Good to be here.
Look forward to getting to know you a little bit better and for you to share with our audience.
Absolutely.
Let's start, early on, where you grew up, where you're from, and some hobbies you had.
Absolutely. I grew up in Connecticut. My dad I had a couple car dealerships there and a sort of affiliated automotive businesses with that, like racing team. So I grew up as a kid. At 6 months old, my mom started taking me to racetracks. My dad was driving at the time, did really well, and had a couple bad crashes. And when I was 8, he stopped driving, became a team owner, and actually had to be 8 years old to race go-karts. And about a mile from my house was a go-kart track. So that sort of helped me start getting in the groove and trying to get out there as much as I can. And from there, I probably spent 7 or 8 years go-karting.
So you said at 6 was the first time you started going on the track, or 6 months old?
6 months old, yeah.
Started going on the track, and then go-karts at 8?
Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
And I just continued going to all the races with my dad, really getting involved, trying to help the team. I was never the hugely most mechanical person, but, just loved the whole atmosphere, obviously. So it was grooming. After school, I'd go to my dad's race shop. It's always fun for a kid, finding some stupid little projects to work on, and, just grew up around the business, that and his car dealership business, So I learned a lot early on from the management side of things.
Besides racing, what other hobbies did you have growing up?
Growing up, I did play some different sports in school. Did a little bit of boating. We weren't far from the coast, but I think I slowly breathed, and slept racing. Right. I was very entrepreneurial. So my dad was always very entrepreneurial. When I was young, he had me selling door to door, Christmas cards and seeds and all this stuff. And when I turned like 12 or 13 with the car dealerships, I would pick up like a real junker and try to, fix it up a bit and sell it for profit. So that got me started pretty early.
So when did you start your, start thinking you're going to be a professional race car driver? When did that take place?
Well, at that point in time, you had to be 18 to be to drive. They've lowered the limit now. But I'd say right around 15 and 16, I'd probably go to 7 or 8 races a year, and everyone would be asking, so when are you going to drive? What are you going to drive? And then it just became, I don't know, Dad, what am I going to drive? And it was interesting. My dad owned, when he stopped driving, shortly thereafter, Paul Newman joined with him, and it became Newman Sharp Racing. And they had a lot of leftover race cars, which became very beneficial to me. There's tons of kids out there that are like wicked fast in a go-kart, yet obviously it's exponentially more expensive to get into cars. So for me, it was easy when they had a 5 or 6 year old race car that no one's using in the back corner. I could begin my driving in that.
So that was a high school?
That was probably right around high school. I started my actual first year racing was my senior year in high school.
Senior year. So what was it like to go in your very first official race event? How'd that feel?
Well, they obviously you got to walk the climb the ladder. So, start at a real, what we call regional level. You're not, you're racing against probably people that don't have a whole lot more experience than you. I actually raced a car. I was 18 at the time that my dad had raced 17 years earlier, won a championship in. Paul Newman had raced in it, and it sat in our basement. And as a kid, I used to play in it. They took it out, they refurbished it a bit. So I started practicing and really just, loved it. I mean, obviously, if you like go-karting, something that's got, 200 times the power and the handling ability, it was great. So I won my first race, but it wasn't like the greatest accomplishment, but I should.
That's great to win your first race. So what was next after high school?
Well, my mom was a teacher, and I was really tired of just the liberal arts side of things. So we went on the Northeast college trek, and everywhere I went, I'm like, okay, can I miss classes here to go racing? And some schools were not the most open to that. And at the same time, I was sort of, like I said, tired of the liberal arts. So I found just the perfect school for me. It's Babson College up in Boston. It's sort of the #1 entrepreneurial studies college, and Boston was an amazing town to be in as well. But they were very open to that and a little bit more independent and letting the kids manage their time and stuff. So I kept racing, and by my junior year, I was racing professionally. And so then graduated finance and investments major. And that was sort of a deal with my mom. My mom didn't want me to race. She just, I don't know why, I guess was scared or whatever. And my dad and I were gung-ho to do all these races. So we had to come up with a plan. And as long as I was on the dean's list, carried a full load, I could race as much as I wanted. So it sort of hurt my social side of my being in Boston, but it was great because I got out of school, and within a couple of years I was racing for the Chevrolet factory team, and really just going that full throttle.
Love to hear about your first race as a pro.
Yeah, first race as a pro. Well, let me see. What would be my first race as a pro? I had joined a guy in sort of longer distance endurance racing, and we won that together. And anyways, obviously, just you start to all of a sudden you're racing not against guys you've really never heard of, you don't even know them, but guys that I've grown around hearing their names and watching them, and you're racing against them. So that was pretty exciting.
That's interesting when, even for an entrepreneur or any athlete, you look up to some people and then eventually you're at that level. Talk about that.
Yeah, my dad was very. I mean, I always did really well in go-karts, won a lot of races, and seemed like I had some talent. But he always really tempered that with, because I started thinking, okay, I want to go IndyCar racing, I want to do all this stuff. He's like, no, just, it may never happen, it may never work out that way. Just be happy with whatever you're doing, have fun with it. He really tried to lower the expectations. And so as I started, getting going and started racing against people and doing well, you see a guy that you've heard of for years, 5 or 6 years, you've seen him do really well, and you're all of a sudden, faster than him, you qualify him, you beat him, and you're like, wow, how did that just happen? So, and then it spurns you, okay, maybe I can go farther. So that's pretty much, that just kept building for me.
So what was next after?
Well, I had a really sort of strange growth. I really did well in Trans Am cars. My dad had a Trans Am team as I was a kid growing up, so I was very familiar with the series. That was sort of a big sports car ongoing series in that age or time. And so I got in that with the Chevrolet factory team, like I said, and I raced that for 3 years, won a couple championships for them, and really got on well with the top motorsports guy there. And he's like, okay, what do you want to do? You want to go NASCAR racing or you want to go IndyCar racing? And I grew up, because of Newman Sharp Racing, Paul also owned an IndyCar team. Michael and Mario Andretti drove for. So I always, went to all these races with them and just, drooling over the smell and the sound of just wicked fast cars. And to me, NASCAR wasn't that exciting. And in reality, obviously NASCAR blew up in his amazing business, and I probably should have made that route. But I always had dreamt about IndyCar, so Chevrolet helped me get into IndyCars. And I made a very uncharacteristic move to go from a Trans Am car to an Indy car. It's like worlds apart different. And so it took a couple of years to get comfortable with that. But I raced for AJ Foyt, and then I just sort of went on and ended up doing about 14 Indy 500s. Won, 15 or 16 races, and then got hooked up with Patron Tequila, and I was with them for 14 years, and they started with me in Indy cars, and then together we moved back to sports car racing. So, and I started my own team, and had about 35 people working for me, and we raced 2 cars, so we fielded 2 cars, and basically almost all races are some level of an endurance race, anywhere from 24 hours down to like 2.5, but you always have to have some kind of teammate or more for a 24-hour. Like a 24-hour might have 4 teammates, or 3 teammates, 4 drivers total. But we raced internationally. We did an amazing event that gets very little notoriety over here. There's actually a big movie coming out about it, Ford versus Ferrari. It's called the Le Mans 24-hour. And in Europe, it's like there's no other race, or actually a sporting event. I think it's the world's biggest sporting event. Sadly, over here in the U.S., it gets a minor amount of attention. But anyway, as a team, we were fortunate to do that a few times and sort of did the global tour.
Obviously, you're tremendously successful. Talk about some of the tougher experiences or some struggles or challenges you had, rising through the ranks and becoming a champion.
Yeah, I think for me, thank God, I've always been a little bit more of an optimist. And I think in racing, you almost have to be. You've got 35, 40 cars out there. There's one winner, meaning most of the time there's 40 people that go home somewhat dejected. And I've always been someone that you quickly analyze, what could I have done better? How could I have done it differently? Obviously, talk with your team. What could we have done better? Could we worked on the handling of the car or pit stops or whatever? But then you got to stop, move on, you go to the next race, right? You can't be like dragging your tail all week or going into the next event all sort of dejected. I mean, you got to just rise up and move on. And so for me, I think that's always been really beneficial. And there's been, you have amazing. I mean, I have so many stories. It's like Indianapolis was probably my favorite track. Wicked speeds, 235 miles an hour, just so much fun. I mean, 300,000 people are at the race. I did great in practice, great in qualifying, never really put it together in races for varieties of reasons. But in 2001, I was on the pole there, which is it's a whole weekend of just qualifying, and then the race comes a weekend or two later, and we killed it on the pole, and it was a really cold race day morning, and they painted the lines. There's a line on the bottom of the track, just sort of to symbolize, I guess, the bottom of the track, even though there's asphalt below it. Well, they painted that, and I didn't know, and I went bawling down into turn one at the green flag, and I got the minute that my left side tires got on the line, it was like glass, and it just snapped my car around, and I crashed. So I mean, all that work, and with 500 miles to go, and I stuffed the thing in the first corner. So talk about dejected. More than anything, I just felt horrible for the guys and the team, and just the euphoria we'd had going into the race. But what do? I mean, once you think about, okay, what could I have done differently? You review every video. It's time to go, and we went and won the next race in Texas. So you got to just do that kind of thing. You got to just pick up and move on. I think people that know me really well sort of laugh. Like I have no rear view mirror. I analyze it quick, and I'm done, and I move forward. So. I think that's a lot of that, and that's helped me with business. I think as I moved on, the team was great because I had, like I said, 35 people working for me, and you're wearing a lot of hats as a team owner. I'm driving still, being the owner. A lot of people come to me just because I may not be the most mechanical, but I've been doing it my whole life. You do certainly the sales and the marketing side of things. So that was challenging to be. It was just never-ending amount of logistical details. But I think so combinations of all that, I think, has really helped prep me for post-racing and a lot of the business stuff I'm doing now.
I think you said a lot of great things there. I think something you said that's just incredible is being able to move past those, not looking back, and be able to move past incidents quickly. Talk a little bit more about that, because it's something I think that sets people apart, is they're not always focusing on what just happened and they're looking ahead.
Yeah, I guess I really work hard on that. I'm a upbeat guy. I like to be positive and pumped. I want to have, not every day is like is that way. Certainly there's some times it's frustrating or struggles, but for the most part I work hard to keep myself positive and motivated and have positive things going on around me. So I think for the team, even that always would happen. You come back from a race. We've had races where we got our butts kicked. Maybe the car broke, we crashed it, whatever. And Monday morning when you're unloading the race trailer and you've got a pile of a messed up car that the guys are going to spend the whole week rebuilding, no one's in a great mood. But you got to just rally everybody, and there's always another race, there's always another opportunity. Now that I'm in business, there's some deals are going great, some deals are not, and some months are strong, some months are not, and you just got to wake up in the morning and push through to, okay, what are we going to do differently to make it better? And I take a lot of enjoyment out of that.
Awesome. Let's talk about what your favorite championship was, and then a little bit more about your racing, then we'll get into being an entrepreneur now.
All right, cool. Well, it's funny. My first Trans Am championship would probably have to be one. I never thought I would get to that point. Never thought I would race trans. As a kid running around watching my dad's team do it, I never thought I'd even get to it. So then, let alone go win the championship, was pretty huge for me. I won an early IndyCar championship. Again, that was pretty major. I raced for AJ Foyt at the time. Obviously a legend in the sport. But I'd say, I owned a team called Extreme Speed Motorsports, and we never won any championships. We got very close, but just to see, I think the team is every bit as rewarding for me, even though I was one of the drivers, to see the team come together and see all that goes in with 35 guys constantly working to improve the car, improve pit stops, make the car faster, more reliable, whatever, and then see that turn into results on the track and win races and challenge for championships. That's, to me, was every bit as rewarding as going out and doing it yourself.
You mentioned team. You mentioned your dad. Who else could you say? Because there's always successful people, and you never see some of the people behind them, behind the scenes. Who's some people that was behind the scenes to help you get to where you're at and help you achieve what you've accomplished?
There's been so many people. Certainly, of course, my dad, and actually Paul Newman was fantastic. He's an amazing guy, great driver too. He's a guy who didn't even begin driving till he was like in his mid-40s, which is pretty unheard of. And super talented, but always with, as much as who he was, and I don't think I even recognized his celebrity type status as a kid growing up so much, but just to see the time he would take to help me and guide me and offer suggestions and be reinforcing. So him and my dad, obviously, especially going into racing, and my dad from a business perspective as well, I just would drill him with questions night after night after night. And then I'd say each step of the way, you find a team owner, as I was just becoming a team owner, that would sort of guide you a little bit. I've gotten pretty heavy into real estate, and with ups and downs and some mistakes I've made, and you find people there that there's been several people that have just sort of gave me a lot of guidance, taken me a little bit under their wing, and sort of helped me navigate properly. So I've been fortunate to have a lot of great people that have guided me.
So your last race, what was it like to go in? And do you know when you went your last race that was going to be your last one, or?
Well, I've actually never officially retired.
Okay.
So, and I don't think I've had my last race.
Okay.
At some point I'll drive, but more for a fun side. Basically, like I'd mentioned, the last couple of years, racing was amazing. And anytime you get in the car and you're, controlling this sort of like missile, it's awesome. Everything, and no matter what stresses in your life, it gets completely pushed out because it takes 120% concentration. So it's, from that perspective, it's almost like tranquil being in the car, even though your heart rate's up crazy. So the last couple of years, I really was craving to do more and more business stuff. It's what I wanted to build, something that has more residual value. A race team, it's been, like I said, unbelievable experiences, and a great group of guys we had. But once it's over, it's not a franchise. You've got used racing assets, and that doesn't sell for a lot of money. So I wanted to build something from a business perspective that had more sustainability long term. So at the same time, I knew from the upper guys at Patron that they were trying to sell the company, and eventually they sold to Bacardi. And Bacardi was doing sort of a global pullout of motorsports and didn't want to continue. And so throughout the last year, which was 2018, so it was last year, there was some hope that maybe they would, because we had such success, continue, but decided, as they were almost everywhere else in the world, pulling back. So that was fine, and it just came I almost felt like it was like so God-driven. It was like I was getting ready, I wanted to get out. If Patrona continued, I wouldn't have, just because it was too much. We had such a good thing going. So when it all happened that way, it was great. So going into the last race, it's a 10-hour race in Road Atlanta called Petit Le Mans, and everyone sort of knew, I think without saying it, that was probably it. And we didn't end up doing that great. My car was in the lead when we had a wheel bearing problem that cost us about 8 laps to fix. So we ended up finishing the race, but it wasn't, we didn't have a chance to challenge. The other car was gonna win the race and had a flat tire, which threw it off of pit sequence and made him have to he had to pit early to fix the flat tire, and it made him have to do one extra pit stop towards the end of the race. And when he pitted and splashed, he lost the lead. So it could have ended really storybook, but it didn't. But it was still, everyone was half crying, half celebrating at the end of it.
Love to get into your business ventures now, and obviously anytime you're an athlete, you're operating at the highest level with discipline and focus. How is that translated into your business career?
Yeah, I'm a very type A kind of guy, and so to me, it's, I don't show up to do much of anything, to just sort of cruise along, So, and that's the same way with a race team. You don't show up at the race. If you're going and you're renting the track and you're going to go testing, meaning you're going to prepare the car for the track you're eventually going to race on, you go there to kill it. Even if it's just a test day, you're not there just driving around. So it's the same way I think I sort of am with the racing, with the business. I pretty much every day want to get there. I've got a huge list of things I want. I don't get through them all necessarily, but I'm very focused with my time. And I think as older I've gotten so much more, and I'm more busy than I've ever been in my life right now, doing different business initiatives. But I've gotten very protective of my time. I think it's one of the big things. I see just time sucks, as I call them. Where something surprising will come out and literally just suck a couple hours out of your day, and or an afternoon out of your day, putting some fire out or something, and it just derails the productivity I hope to have. So that's sort of, you got to manage that, or I have to manage that a little bit. But no, I think certainly just the get up every day to still have a lot of drive to go build something and make it better, that I think I carried over from the racing, is really helping me with business.
What advice do you have for someone that's getting started in business or as an entrepreneur?
I guess, what everybody says, you hear it everywhere, but just never give up. There's always another. I find there's always another scenario out there, even when it looks really bleak and maybe it looks not so strong financially. There's always some scenario to sort of keep it going, to turn it around, to partner with someone, and you gotta just have a 24/7 mentality and never give up.
Never give up is obviously huge. We talk about that all the time. Talk about patience in business. It's something that, like, people want everything right now.
Yeah.
And the most successful people, they know things take time to
Yeah.
develop, and there's always another way to get to it. But talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
which is probably tough for you because there's no such thing as patience.
I was going to say,
So that's why I
I've
threw
got
that
a
one
lot
at
of
you.
patience because I've never used any. But yeah, especially coming from my background,
Right.
you don't have a lot of patience, and I'm not just ride with me on the highway. You'll see that. But yeah, I mean, I think business teaches you that. We've all probably made hasty decisions. We've all tried to make a deal that maybe seemed like it shouldn't go together just because you were excited about it. And I think obviously sometimes you just have to go through a few of those, and I think learn the lesson the hard way, really. And you look back and say, geez, I really pushed to try to make that happen. I paid more than I should for something, and I got to really make sure I dot all my I's and cross my T's, and maybe take a deep breath. So certainly I still push really hard, and I think time is of the essence in a lot of businesses that we're all in. You want to make it while you can, or make it while whatever you're doing is popular and at the time. But certainly I think I still push, but I think you got to sometimes temper it a little bit.
So what goals do you have going forward that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I like to build stuff. It's really what we did with the team, and I think, throughout my career. But I've gotten into real estate pretty heavy. I'm in the middle of building, halfway through building about a 504-bed student housing complex in University of South Carolina. And we could sit and talk about that forever. That was like gone and destined for destruction. I don't know how many different times, with a lot of money that I'd put down hard, a lot of ways to not do it. And thank God it all worked out, and I have a great investor that came in it was very experienced to do it with me, and it's going to turn out, I think, to be a very successful and a great project, and lead to more. So that's exciting. My wife and I started a online high-end dress rental company, a little bit similar to Rent the Runway, but our own sort of niche to that, a little higher end than that. And obviously, when you're dealing with a startup world, you never have enough hours in the day, and you only have we're self-funding it at the moment, so you're a limited amount of resources and how you're going to deploy all those. So
Can you share that website?
It's ladyjetset.com.
LadyJetset.com.
Yeah, and basically the whole rental connotation is just, people are just building on that more and more and more in so many different industries. So I think people are starting to realize, the average dress gets worn 3 times in a woman's closet. So if you could rent a dress for a fraction of what it costs to buy, and especially if you're more of a social networking type a woman who posts a lot, you don't want to be seen in the same dress twice. So that's where the whole, I think, concept of a high-end, $1,000 dress you can rent for $100 roughly really comes into play. We've taken it a little differently. We actually deliver to your destination. So if a woman, and now we just got into ski wear as well for women. So if someone's going to go hit the slopes and they want the newest, hottest designer looks and après ski stuff, the sweaters, the cashmere, the jackets, all that can be shipped to their location. They get there, and it's there hanging in their closet waiting for them.
We'll make sure we get that information out in this video. That's
Thanks.
good stuff. Anything else?
I got a
As
few
far as
other
goals?
entrepreneurial things I'm working on. It's sort of like sometimes you got to just say no, but I got a few things I'm working on.
So people look up to you. How does that feel to, people look up to you in racing and in business? How does that make you feel?
Almost embarrassed, I guess. I don't feel like I'm any different than anybody else. I think I've been really blessed. I think I try to just every day push, every day try to make a difference. And whatever we're working on, whatever we're building, try to take it one step further. So, but it's nice. It's rewarding that people do that. I think in the racing field, I probably earned it a little bit after doing it for 32 years, as many other drivers have too, of course, that are so experienced. But whereas I'm still just getting into the business side of things a little bit.
So any last words for someone that wants to be a champion? What were the, say, 2 or 3 things you'd say you have to do if you want to be a champion?
Obviously, like I started with, I think literally you got to walk into something with a mentality that there is no turning back. There is no giving up. I feel like every day, even on days when things look like it just, I mean, I'm asking myself, why did I do this? You got to wake up the next day, and you got to push yourself to be so motivated to I've got to find a solution to this. I know there's something out there. I know there's a way to push through this issue we're having or the market we're dealing with. So I think that's the single biggest thing for me is I try to, even there's times, hey, things get, sometimes things don't plan the way that you hope they do or you expect they do, and it can look bleak. But you've got to, once you maybe sleep on it and you wake up that next day, you've got to go and you've got to push, and you just can never back off. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then obviously team. Team's everything. You can only do so much. You have only so many hours in the day. The people you surround yourself with. I think. Like racing, I mean, I wasn't the most mechanical. I wasn't. I'm certainly not the guy who's like these days engineers get paid tons of money. They're the smartest guys that make the cars go faster. That certainly wasn't me. So, but our success is you surround people that are way smarter than you, and same thing what we try to do in our business.
Absolutely, great tips. Fantastic having you on. Get to know a little bit more about you, scratching the surface, and really enjoyed our time together.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's great to talk with you.